All right. So I think we'll get started, and if we have any more folks that join in, so be it. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes for February. Oh, excuse me, for April. I got the minutes up. Let me get the agenda. So I'll give you a minute to read over the minutes. Are there any questions that folks have? Thank you again, Susan, for doing them.
You're welcome again.
So if there are no questions, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Who would like to move that?
I'll do it. I haven't seen them, but I'll do it so we can move on.
And I'll
And I
second.
think technically you can't.
I was
move
gonna
them.
say, I don't think I can, but
I'll move them.
All right,
I'll
so
move 'em.
Maddie moved them, and Judy, will you second them?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Excellent. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing, we had an interesting discussion. I was perhaps under a misunderstanding. Originally, I thought our membership was limited to 9 people, some of whom were designated or defined by the various committees that they serve on. And it turns out that we only have to have a minimum number of people. There is no maximum number of people. So we had a situation where we have one person who has been on, Sharon, who was away and now has come back and would be interested in serving again. So we can increase the membership by 1 or more if we so choose. I don't think there's any downside to it, and obviously more participation is better. So anybody have any thoughts on that? Seems like
move that we add Sharon to the committee.
excellent. So the
I
move
second
is
it.
and Sharon Rule Agar to the Housing Partnership, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion?
So I need to go now to the select board?
I believe that is true, Sharon. I wish Courtney's gone away, but if you just drop Courtney an email,
Okay,
she will add you as an item on the select board agenda.
So
Okay.
I got an email from someone asking me if I wanted to re-up.
Right, so that's the second thing I was going to say is everyone who is now serving who isn't a designated representative from a standing committee, the term is up in June. And I believe everyone has a 1-year term.
Is that me too? Yeah?
I'm sorry?
I said, is that me also?
Karen, I think so, right. So
Because I haven't received it. I haven't received anything.
Yeah, you answered her, Karen, I think. I saw your
did?
email. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
anyway, it doesn't, I tell you what.
Sorry.
We can double cross our Ts here. So would all of you, first, let me say, does everyone want to continue serving on the partnership?
Yep.
Excellent. So would you just drop, each of you individually, drop an email to Courtney, and it's Courtney Butler at Wellfleet Town Hall, and say, I would like to serve for another year on the Housing Partnership. And then eventually you will get on the agenda for the select board and they will approve you. That's wonderful, guys. For many years, we had to really struggle to get people interested, and now I think we have more share of mind than we ever had before. So thank you very much for that. Any other questions for about membership? So I think the next order, I'm going to double check my agenda here, is 95 Lawrence. So let me give you an update and tell you some things. We met with the select board several weeks ago to review the status of the RFP. And for the most part, it was a receptive meeting. They did raise some questions about, I think actually some good questions about what is the medium income we want to target to make sure that we serve the needs of the people who have the greatest need. The second had to do with the number of times that they said, well, if we wanted something extra, could we put in some money? And that had to do with both green design, soundproofing, parking, and the wastewater. And there was a good discussion about the water and the wastewater. And I can tell you that we had a grant of $30,000 from the county to study the wastewater for 95 Lawrence. And that RFQ, it's not a full proposal, but it's just a request for someone to say that they have the qualifications to do it, and they can do it in the time and for the money indicated. But that RFQ is going out this week. So we hope to get some input on that. And it's interesting, I think the more we have discussed the wastewater, I think the more complex the idea of having a wastewater treatment system is, and the more likely we will go with some type of alternative system, but we'll see what the consultant comes back with. John, you're probably closer to that than any of us. Does that sort of match what you're thinking?
Yeah, I want to know who the consultant is.
We don't know yet. We just put it out to
The
bid.
people who
John, if I remember correctly, there are three names. Witten and Horsley and Witten is one. East Coast or East Cape is another, and then there is a third that I didn't recognize.
Okay.
But they're all local firms, and hopefully that they can do it and can do it for the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some people who are already too tied to particular solutions that I would be concerned about, but those, at least the two you mentioned, are certainly acceptable.
Okay. I can tell you that we did get some ballpark figures, John, and for everybody's benefit. So a standard Title V septic system for a project that size, the guesstimate is that it will run up between $400,000 and $500,000. A alternative system will likely be 2x that amount, something in the $800,000 plus range. And there is also an ongoing cost, although not a large one, for the alternative system. In the alternative system, you have the additional filtration through the wood chips or whatever medium they use, but you also have some fans and things that help to promote airflow. I understand it correctly. There is some
There's
maintenance.
several alternative systems. There's an advanced alternative system, we might say, that actually the wood chip system is not as expensive as the standard alternative system, which requires much more electrical and inputs. But the wood chip alternative system, we'd have to get permission from the state to bring it in because it hasn't been officially okayed by the state. But that's down the line. I think our consultants will talk to us about that.
Exactly. And we have talked to, there's a man for the county named George Hufelder.
Right.
Is the de facto expert in this, and he actually has a design. And so we may make a field trip for those of you who are interested.
Right.
when we go.
George is the one who has developed the wood chip system.
Yeah.
Which is relatively inexpensive, and is very efficient, especially if it's running 12 months out of the year. The concern is the licensing from the state, but apparently the state is willing to give provisional approval to George's system. So we just have to get into that mix, but that's down the road.
Jan has joined us. So Jan, if you choose to, you can turn on your video.
I will. My apologies. I completely forgot.
That's quite all right. It's a beautiful day. So
I have to check in the mirror how I look. Not so good, but I'll turn the video on.
The rest of us look so great.
all right. Who is still in their PJs?
No,
Who will admit it?
I'll
not
never
Right.
know.
So let me give you the sort of not great news on 95 Lawrence and our meeting with the select board. Because a town meeting has not occurred and will not occur until October at the earliest, in all likelihood, they are reluctant to put out the RFP until we have a vote on the drinking water system that is not really a part of, but is connected to the
Right.
95 Lawrence project. So that means that we will effectively, the reason we were pushing for a spring release was that if we could make an award by the fall, the developer could get in line, and it's a once a year funding opportunity, which happens in the wintertime. So it does mean likely that we are pushing back. You know, who knows what's going to happen in these crazy times, but it does mean that we will likely be pushing that timetable back by another year. And there is obviously the question of at town meeting, what will happen? That's a very large ticket item. So whether or not it will be approved anyway, but be that as it may, we're going to wait until town meeting occurs before we release the RFP. So where we are right now is we are rewriting some of the specs in the RFP, which we met the other day to do. And then the next step would be to have the town send it to town council, to their attorneys, to take a look at. And I have no idea how long that will take, but since we're not likely to issue it before the fall, it probably is not a top of the pile kind of thing for town council. So it may be a couple of months before we actually see the final RFP.
Gary, can I ask you a question about the RFP?
Sure, John.
The last time I remember, in terms of energy, the source, what we're supplying for electrical energy,
Right.
the RFP would say solar ready,
We've actually, go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
not required. And I was going to push us to move beyond that. And I just want to know where we are on that.
Yeah, I believe we did actually work on the language about solar the other day, John. And I think it doesn't quite say solar ready, but words to that effect, that it's maximized for potential solar. And it also refers to standards, leads and passive house, et cetera, within the specifications of the RFP. So that's one of the criteria that they have to meet in order to be approved for an award.
Okay, I don't mean to divert us, but I wanted to mention this, that the problem with having it solar ready or solar potential
Yeah,
it won't happen because the developer won't pay the electric bill and the tenants will.
you're right, John.
So the state has money for solar units on these kind of projects, at least it was moving in that direction. I would like stronger language than just solar appropriate or solar ready.
Is there,
Won't happen, and it's the biggest project in town.
right. I believe you are correct in your analysis is that unless the developer pays for the electricity, they have no incentive to incur additional costs and complexity without any return. But that's the reality of housing today is that they don't pay for the electricity. They reduce the rent
Right.
and have the tenant pay. But John, if you want to either send me a sentence or that you would like to see,
Okay,
I'd be happy to pass that along to the committee.
okay, I'll talk to David Mead Fox about this as well.
Absolutely.
And I will also check in with Andrew Gottlieb to see, because I've raised this with the APCC on, larger CAPE issues.
Right.
He says there is money coming down the pike from the state to pay for solar on these kind of projects. So I'll see if I can get more information on that.
I think when we tried to take out the language that talked about particular funding sources, only because it's a moving target in terms of time.
Right. No, I don't want to put that language in there. I just want that available for us to know,
Right.
so that when we're making decisions, obviously adding solar adds a cost. But if we decide to make that a decision and there is funding to mitigate that cost, that seems to me a factor in our consideration. That's all.
Great. John, I'd welcome any language that you have to suggest, you or the Energy Committee, and we will try to do what we can to put that in there. So 95 Lawrence, we are making progress on the RFP. It will be finished in the next little bit, but the real issue will be probably waiting until after the fall town meeting to issue that, which likely means it's not until next year that we would make an award and they would then get into the funding cycle. And of course, who knows what the funding cycle will look like a year from now. Any questions on 95 Lawrence?
Are people on the task force, did that take the wind out? Or do people still feel energized?
I would say, Sharon, not to be disingenuous, it did. I was the one who was pushing to go forward faster. So I would say, yes, it took the wind out of my sail a little bit, but in general, not so much.
Maybe the others were relieved, huh?
Maybe. But,
Well,
anyway, we will
it's
see
just,
what happens.
it's disappointing.
Yeah. But no, I don't mean to give you a negative report. And on balance, the select board was appreciative, and they did have some good comments and are looking forward to pushing it along.
Yeah, I don't see how it could have gone any other way, given the
No, they're right.
situation.
They're right. It's just I was just trying to. I kept saying, 5 years. It gets longer and longer.
Yeah, it's a
The
long
older, right,
time.
the older you get. So that time horizon.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions about 95 Lawrence? Okay, so let me give you an update about our work with the CDP and our housing expertise. I will start with the not so good news. We did a lot of work, and actually Karen in particular did a lot of work with the housing choice application. We submitted it, I think it goes to the county, not to the state. And they reviewed it and decided that we didn't meet enough of the criteria. And this had to do with, a lot of it has to do with zoning, but things like reduced parking requirement or inclusionary zoning bylaw we don't have a number of the things that they like to have. And you have to, I forget, there were, Karen, you may recall, if there are 14 things and you have to have 7 of them, or
I think 12 and you have to have 7,
yeah,
something.
something like that. Anyway, we had 6. So,
Can we invent one?
trust me, John, when I say we actually spoke at quite length with the person who's in charge of passing it along. And she said, you know, she's not in the business of saying no, but it's not fair to all the other towns. Of course, I somewhat disagree with that. But anyway,
We're
and
different.
she pointed out that we have already received a grant. That's the $100,000 that we received for the design of the water system, which was a housing choice grant. And having received one, we're not eligible to receive another one for 2 years. So although it would have been nice, and we did put a lot of work in, and I also want to thank the building department and
They
just,
were very cooperative.
yeah, who really helped with that.
I'm sorry,
Anyway.
I forget exactly what we were asking for in this grant.
We weren't asking, you get designated as a housing choice community. A
I see.
housing choice community is one in which they perceive that is supportive of affordable housing. And as such, you get some additional weighting when you apply for grants, including, for instance, Mass Works grants, which we are asking for the water system. So it does have value. But be that as it may, we have elected to withdraw our application for this year and to work on meeting that 7th criteria and moving forward. So that's the not so good news. But anyway, thank you everyone who did work on that, and Karen in particular. But we have begun to get calls on our hotline. We probably got half a dozen calls. And the CDP is doing a good job of responding to people. And, you know, it's people in difficult situations, much of it from the pandemic. So it's people who are struggling to meet their rent or getting pushed out of their apartment. So we are.
How are they getting pushed out of their apartments?
They can't pay their rent.
Yeah, but there's an eviction.
Right, there is a moratorium, but the moratorium, Sharon, is only that they can't be evicted. It isn't that they still owe the money.
Well, yes.
So they're struggling with that. But let's see, if I recall correctly, there was a young person who was having to leave because it was going to be a summer rental anyway, and was looking for other things. There was a person on disability who was struggling with fixed income things. But be that as it may, I think it is that we are starting to get calls, which means that we're starting to meet that need. And I think the CDP is doing a good job of answering the calls. And
So is it largely people who are looking for rent assistance?
I think so, Sharon. Right now, I think it's too soon for people who are homeowners who may be struggling with their mortgage. It's too soon for that to have a big impact, but we may see more of that as things progress.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Positive note on
Sure.
this. I
go
mean,
ahead, John, I'm sorry.
on a positive note,
Yep.
I do think there's a potential if one of the pressures on housing in the Outer Cape has been the conversion of year-round homes to short-term summer rentals for financial, not as a family that owns a home and is partially renting it, but companies that actually buy up homes for summer rentals.
Yeah.
And I think that pressure is going to alleviate very quickly as the market for summer rentals becomes much more problematic.
Does anyone know that the actual current situation about short-term rentals?
Yes, I've been obsessed with it.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
I've tried to follow it closely, but anyone else chime in. Right, as of now, the governor says no short-term rentals in phase 1, which
Okay.
goes till at least June 8th. So that's what Wellfleet is assuming. The next decision point is going to be discussed at the select board on this coming Tuesday night in terms of what our approach as a community ought to be, assuming that assuming the governor will make a change for phase 2. The caveat to that is that he's appointed a sub-board of hospitality and lodging decision-making group to lay out what the different ways are that short-term rentals might be permissible. It's even possible that there could be a change for phase 1, but seems unlikely. Seems like any real change won't happen until at least June 8th. And the town is trying to make a decision in coordination with at least the other Outer Cape towns, but it wasn't clear to me this past Tuesday when they discussed it, whether that was successful or not, whether they had gotten together as a group. Feeling that if Wellfleet does something and Truro and Eastham do something else, it's really not going to be as effective in controlling the number of people who come into Wellfleet. But I got a sense at this last meeting on Tuesday that there was a lot of concern about 18,000 extra people coming in. The police force and the fire force are both down by at least a couple of individuals for the upcoming summer months. So I got the sense that there were going to be restrictions, whether there'll be 1, 2, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, I don't know. But the decision should move along this coming Tuesday.
Practically speaking, the people I know that do cleaning do not want to be involved with cleaning for short-term rentals. They don't want to go in there and,
Yeah.
no.
I don't have that problem. My cleaner and I will work it together. We already have a system in place.
Sharon, were you going to say something?
No,
Okay.
I'm just listening. We're having the same problem with the dune shacks because normally they're rented throughout the summer.
Yeah.
And it's quite a process to get the whole thing moving. And and then in addition, people are out in the dunes. And so what happens if they're out in the dunes and then they get sick? Nobody wants to drive them back. So, it's an interesting question. And I don't know, it's hard to imagine that it's going to work out real well if we open up too soon.
Right. I did hear, I'm not 100% sure, but the beaches now from the 20th of May to the 15th of June are for residents only?
Yeah.
Right, you can't get a sticker if you're a short-term renter or till June 20th.
Oh, is that
That-
right?
I don't think that would prevent something like a bus company bringing people and dropping them off.
Right.
Oh, good
Most,
point.
but most people aren't going to want to go on a bus now, I wouldn't think.
Well,
They shouldn't.
maybe.
I don't think too many bus trips are going to be happening.
I think a lot of young people aren't concerned,
Are concerned
are not.
Not.
or not? Yeah.
I
They're not
agree.
taking the buses.
I predict there'll be bus loads brought in this weekend.
I agree.
Oh, I don't think so. Really?
I
Young
think-
people? You think but young people are going to get on a bus?
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, I'm
I
not
don't see
happy
it.
about it. I don't think it's a good idea.
I don't see that.
if they're living in the city, whether living in Boston or New York, and they're in a city, they're probably on public transportation anyway.
Yeah.
And many of them may have already had it and think they're safe
Yeah.
if they're living in a city.
Or don't really care because they're young, and although there's the odd chance that something will happen, the great majority of people who get it who are young recover.
Right.
Right, exactly.
And just kill their
The
grand.
majority of old people that get it recover too.
That's true. Thank you, Karen.
Not everybody.
No,
Okay.
I didn't say everybody. I said the majority.
So, the thing I'm hearing increasingly is the impact on all the businesses in town, as well as the people who live on that short-term rental for other parts of the year, and not having it available. And some of them may not have it to give back for those who have already been rented. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are using the CDP hotline successfully. And the other thing is we now have about 70 people signed up for our newsletter
Yay.
email. So we are making a little bit of progress, but I do want to encourage you again to send out that little button that lets people sign up for the newsletter. And thank you I think Susan posted it on Pres Hall. And did the forum send it out, Jan?
The forum sent out, there were two things that you asked us to send out. There was the button and there was something else. What was the?
The other one was the flyer.
Yes, and I'm not sure John sent out the button. I have to ask him about that.
Okay, if you would check, because I've got another request for you coming up.
For me? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, so the target date for the newsletter is now June 21st. So in a month or so, we should have that newsletter. We would welcome if anyone would like to contribute a comment or has someone who has received assistance for housing would like to come forward. We would be happy to have those comments. I think we're going to feature one or both of the Habitat houses.
So my family got interviewed and they were very delighted by it. I was going to ask if you end up needing more stuff, do you want to try to reach out to the second family?
We actually talked with CP yesterday, and we're doing just that. We've been in touch with Kathleen Nagel.
Right.
And hopefully we'll get the other family as well. Because we thought about it for a little bit and said we shouldn't pick one versus the other. But we'll see what they say.
Good.
But if anybody else has any friends, contacts, relatives who would like to be in the newsletter, we'd be happy to have their story or a quote. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, I think, is town meeting. So there's good news and bad news about moving town meeting. So the date right now, and is by no means certain, because they still can't figure out how they would do it in October, but is October 5th, Monday, October 5th for town meeting. The bad news is that all of the articles that we had on there that were housing related, that included the rental assistance and then funding of another buy down and the CDP Housing Institute are all put off until that time. We have been working with the town to make sure that we have some money available for rental assistance. We don't know what the demand will be. So, but at our current burn rate, we should have sufficient money to see it through, assuming an October town meeting.
Gary, isn't there something about the budget that exists continues?
Yes, assuming that they don't have a town meeting, the state has put forward a schedule that says you can spend 1/12 on a continuing resolution. So they would approve the end of the fiscal year is June 30th for the state. So they would approve 1/12 or July. And then if there had been no town meeting, they would approve another 1/12 for August, et cetera.
But our monies don't fall in that category.
That's our understanding. But we're all flying blind here, Susan. So to some extent, we're making it up as we go along. But right now, I would say that is the correct reading, is that none of those projects will be funded and that it will be the operating budget that will continue on a 1/12 basis.
One could easily make the argument for why you would want to continue things like those grants, but
Jan, did you have something you want to add?
I just want to make sure I understand you. So you're saying that the community preservation articles won't be on the October?
Yes, they will be on the
Yeah,
October,
yeah, they will.
but Jan, originally in the April town meeting, they would have been subject to a vote and hopefully approved, and the money would have become available July 1st.
Oh, got it. Okay, okay.
So the problem obviously is as we approach July 1st and beyond, will we have enough money to meet the needs of, in particular, rental assistance?
Okay, got you.
But let me tell you that there is a silver lining, and it's really something for you all to think about. We met yesterday, the CPC, and we decided to open up another grant round for CPA applications, and the closing date would be July 15th. And we really talked about, and I really want each of you to think about those things that would really support the community in these troubled times. So things that have a local hiring or local labor component, things like I've thought about, we own that plot at Freeman Avenue. That the housing authority owns that lot at Freeman Avenue. Is there an architect or a builder who might be interested in putting in an application to CPC for funding? And it could be a substantial amount of funding. With the proviso that they would, to the extent possible, hire local people, because I think, one of the things we can't directly, CPC can only address 4 areas. So it's housing, it's open space, it's recreation, and it's historic. But there could be projects in each of those areas, whether you were building or whether you were renovating something, that you could have a local labor component, and that would help the economy in Wellfleet, especially as we were talking about short-term rentals and beach closures and no Oyster Fest. And there's going to be a dramatic impact on the local population.
Would you feel like the architect would have to be local?
I don't know. I think it's more important that the balance of the funds go to local people.
Because I'm thinking of a man who's he's my sister-in-law's brother, but he worked very closely on the Modern House Trust, all of that, and on the book and on the movie, and he might, and he has a house here, in Wellfleet. He has a long history here in Wellfleet, but he doesn't live in Wellfleet now.
But I think it's worth a conversation, Sharon, if there was some interest. So right now we have $900,000 in the CPC that is not earmarked for any other project.
900,000?
Yes, I'm not suggesting that we spend, but
No.
you could take, no, I mean, I'm serious. You could take 150 or 200,000. That's not a lot of money to build a house to completion. And we
Mhm.
can make it deed restricted going forward and create jobs, local jobs.
Mhm.
That might be money well spent.
Well, I'll put out a feeler to him and just see if that's something that he might
Right.
I know he was following Lawrence Road with interest, although, he's not in that field, but,
Right. So no, I would, we have the plot. I've been kicking around, is there somebody does anybody actually know any builders?
sure,
I know some architects.
there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there's
No,
plenty of
right.
them out there.
I'm not being facetious. I'm saying if you know somebody that you think would, and it doesn't have to be building a house. It could be renovating Uncle Tim's Bridge. That was something the CPC funded that, if we then said it had to be a local labor component, a significant local labor component, I think people would be interested in that, or the remodeling of the Masons, or the remodeling of the South Wellfleet School meeting
Well,
house.
the short answer is there's plenty of builders around.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
all I'm just
in
saying is
Wellfleet.
that if in all of our community and contacts, if you think about somebody and said, hey, maybe that would be an interesting thing, it's a small amount of effort to put together a CPC application. It's not a huge project to put in
Mhm.
one. But again, we're trying to deal with what we don't know yet, but what we anticipate will be the impact of the pandemic.
Right.
I will say that we had a Zoom meeting with the other towns on the Lower Cape, and a number of them are putting forward the idea of putting a substantial, like $250,000 in the Wellfleet's case, a substantial amount of money into the Housing Trust Fund, simply for emergency housing assistance. And if it's not used for that, then we need to decide that it will either come back or be used for another purpose. So put on your thinking caps, talk to your folks.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think it could be a win-win, and it's short term. So you have to have it in by July 15th, and we're committed to reviewing and having presentations and having it for approval to the select board by the middle of August. So in 30 days, you'll have a definitive answer on this.
Would you have to put it out to bid, though?
Yes, so you could say, yes, is the answer to your question, Jan. So taking the idea of building a house on Freeman.
Right.
So you could ask for funds, just like Habitat does. Habitat asks for money to support the building of the houses at 202. This would be money to support the housing, and the caveat, what we'd like to see, obviously, it would be deed restricted. You'd have to figure out how you would find someone to live in it that was fair and equitable. But that in this case, that you would commit to hiring, I don't know the answer, Jan, but X percentage local people and suppliers.
No, that I understand. It wouldn't come under any, it's not a town project where, like a town project has to go out to bid if it's more than $10,000 or something.
Right.
It wouldn't fall under.
Well, I think you would probably, if you were the developer, let's just say you were this architect, you would probably need to go out for bid on, you develop the specifications and then you'd go out to bid on it. But if one of the requirements was it had to be local.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And you could include just to go back, there would be some amount of the money would go to the architect for the design and the supervision of that process. But again, it doesn't have to be anything as grandiose as that. I mean, if there's other projects in town that you know of that, would have some labor component that would fit broadly into those categories of recreation, historic, open space. I mean, I don't know if there's clearing of land or. anyway, put on your thinking caps. I'll send you the packet. And, you know, if you'd like to develop an idea, I'd certainly be willing to chat with you about it. All right, are there other questions about that? So our understanding is on the projects, and I don't know if you want to speak to this, Susan, or not, but the Habitat houses have actually been making great progress without their volunteers.
Correct. Their progress was accelerated. They had only the professional manager of the volunteer group building and the subs, and they were at the point where it was mostly work for the subs. At some point, the Habitat board decided to halt even that for a week or two, but that's over. So they're back building. And as of maybe 2 weeks ago, I think they're looking to be done way ahead of schedule. Doesn't seem like end of May because I haven't heard anything definitive, but I would say, this is a total guess, but sometime in June, they might be looking at closing and moving in.
Wow.
And they're going to figure out ways for the homeowners who still owe many hours in sweat equity to do their work elsewhere after they've closed and moved in, which they don't normally allow. So yeah, it's great news for everybody.
So I assume they're not going to have the same kind of celebratory house.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think it's all going to be pretty quiet.
Okay.
Or on Zoom.
Yes, on Zoom, right. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'll seek an update just because actually the person who really is anxious to know more is my family, and they haven't gotten any official updates as of a few days ago. So that's why it's not going to be the end of May, you know, but I'll reach out to the Habitat people and see what their thinking is.
Great. Yes, definitely let us know. And also, relative to that, remember we had the work day,
Nope.
Patty and Karen and Judy. Did you guys take any pictures of that you have that show a group that?
Might have some.
Yeah, if you do, would you send them to me?
Sure.
We were looking for some to put in the newsletter.
I might have some too. I'll look.
Yeah, that'd be great. Everybody.
I have a special one of you, Gary, putting up shingles.
Excellent. I'm thinking more of a group one, but we'll see.
Oh,
Well, Habitat has some.
You sent us a couple.
Oh, okay. I
But
think those were I think I sent you recently the houses, but
all right.
I'll see if I can dig
Well,
up.
and this one is in particular because it's Wellfleet Orient. I mean, no, it's a Wellfleet
No,
house with
there
Wellfleet.
were group pictures of that opening ceremony.
Oh,
that
all right.
Habitat took.
yeah.
So Elaine went to that. I know she had some that she sent, but if you could just check and see what pictures you have and send them along.
I don't have them, but I'll ask Habitat because that's how I got the two I already sent you.
Okay. That's great. Are they building more houses? Are they?
Oh,
Is that still planning?
their projects in Brewster and Mashpee, and I don't actually know whether the same thing has happened. I assume they're probably being built by professionals too.
Right. I haven't heard any update on Old Kings Highway.
Yeah,
Jan, have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything either.
No. Jan, no?
No, and the zoning board hasn't met. At this point, we were talking about a June 12th, I think, meeting. I assume that's going to happen, a Zoom meeting. I don't know.
Okay. Right, and Sharon, we did hear that the planning board has not met since, I think it was February. So,
Not surprised.
yeah, not a lot is happening on that front.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
are there any other things that people would like to raise? Otherwise, we can look towards when we should have our next meeting.
Can I just ask a question about the cottage that's on Route 6 that can't be moved, or?
It's funny that you asked that, Karen. I suggested the same thing, is that should we go back to the state and say, if nothing's happening, will you consider giving us the house? But it fell on deaf ears. So I think the reality is nobody knows.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't know the whole circumstance.
Oh, I'm sorry. So for those of you who may recall, there was the house that belonged to, I can't think of his name now, but
Charlie Ansler.
Charlie Amsler, thank you, Judy. That was the site of the parking lot that they were going to do for the bike path.
Mm-hmm.
So the state bought it. And then we requested that they give us the house and we would move it to the Freeman Avenue lot.
Right.
But then it turns out they were going to use that house as their construction headquarters, and that the project itself was going to last several years. And now I don't know what's going to happen with it.
Can they give us the house and we'll give them a trailer?
Karen, maybe I should put you in touch with these people.
No. It's okay. It just seems such a shame to see, if the building is sound, it seems like such a shame to just let
Right.
it.
I think one is the time period, and two is the condition we'd get it in after several years of being a construction
Exactly.
headquarters. And then three is the cost would still be substantial to move it. In the meantime, we've got to move on. So I think our current thinking is, let's just build a house there. And if that house becomes available, we'll look for another piece.
Okay. I just didn't know what was going on. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. So that is the update on that.
So then would we be looking at offering that lot to Habitat?
Well, that's a good question. That's why I was asking Susan. I actually was thinking that would be one that we could use for this idea of a local builder or a local architect using local resources to build a house. I don't know how viable that is, but failing that, it would be Habitat. But Habitat, I don't think, has a local labor component.
Not that I know of.
Sharon?
Oh.
I
I mean,
mean, Susan?
They mostly use volunteers, and
Yeah, right.
Sweat equity.
But they also use a fair amount of contractors, but they have a set of contractors that, the Habitat electrician and the Habitat plumber and the,
yeah, I don't think, I mean, they don't bring in separate people based on the
Right.
location.
yeah, I don't think so either.
I think those people actually do at least some of it as
Pro bono.
volunteer, right, exactly.
Yeah.
But
So Gary,
I want to just go back quickly, because you mentioned again, to be clear, the CPC grant that closes on July 15th, the
Right.
three areas are open space, housing, and historic.
And recreation, there are four.
So whoever was doing this would fit in under housing.
Under housing, but again, if you had, if you wanted to build, making this up on the fly, but, you could do something with respect to building a new playground. And we would fund, that's something we funded in the past. Like the shade structure that's going up actually in June at the field, the ball field playground, that is funded by CPC. Uncle Tim's Bridge was funded by CPC. The clearing of the island that CPC, that Uncle Tim's Bridge goes to, that was CPC funded. Open space, we bought some land, but I was thinking, if clearing trails, if we could do something about cemetery restoration.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Sharon.
Yeah,
So,
David,
yeah, I was
Look
thinking,
who woke up.
you got the cemetery folks ought to come back. I'm sorry, Sharon?
I'm here. I'm listening to everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I was going to put a bug in your husband's ear to say,
Yeah.
if he could figure out some way to renovate now with local people,
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
would probably get a lot more positive response. So
Yeah, I mean, I think finding local people to do the renovation might be tricky because it's kind of specialized, but,
And, right.
and it's a niche.
Right. But,
You know, but-
if it was that you were going to train people to do that,
Uh-huh.
that might be a possibility. So Susan, something with Pres Hall,
Yeah, I mean, you funded two different things for.
right?
Pres
I mean,
Hall. Yeah.
right, but something else that, that would make some sense. I'm just throwing out ideas, but
I mean, I don't know any of the local builders, but I would think some of them would benefit from that amount of money to
Oh, no,
start a
it-
new project. I mean, I don't know them, but I know a couple people who know them. So I'm gonna just see what I can
Most of
do.
them are busy right now, I'll tell you.
I was
All
gonna
right,
say,
it's fine. Well, all along, construction has been exempt, as long as the homeowner wasn't there. So they have been busy, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't hire people
Yeah.
who haven't been quite so busy. I was trying to think of
Can I
something.
ask
we
you a
could do.
question,
Sure, John.
Barry?
Mhm.
Let's talk about the property on Freeman.
Yeah,
If we know someone, I mean, I know someone's son-in-law who's a local builder who built a house, actually, not a very small house, not far from me.
right.
I get that person in touch with you.
Sure, if they would want to if they had some interest in
I
that
think they
idea.
might be interested in doing
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. I'm happy to talk to them and see if, if there's some viable idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yep. All right. So I see on the agenda that I put down the wrong date of May 21st, which is actually, I believe, today. I know
Yes.
days kind of all go together. So do you think we need to have a June meeting? Or do you want to wait and do it in July?
I just don't think we have enough on our agenda right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing pressing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is in wait mode.
I would suggest July.
Okay.
and we could always change that. I mean, if something came up and you really had to talk
Exactly
to
right. So why don't, we have this closing date of July 15th. So why don't we do it the following week? And I can report on the CPC.
Right.
And by then, hopefully, we will have gotten the RFP for Lawrence Road complete and possibly the engineering report on the septic.
Do you have a date for that, Gary?
Yeah, I don't have my calendar in front of me. Did somebody else?
I have the calendar. It looks like June 23rd. I mean,
No,
July.
July.
July
23rd.
20.
July 23rd is
July 23rd.
Thursday, July 23rd. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
Don't have anything else to do.
Right.
No
but
trips
Maybe by
planned?
July we will, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Right.
be hiding from all the people that are coming down from everywhere else.
I don't think they're coming.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My sister, who rents every summer and has for 25 years, is desperately trying to get out of her rental.
I have some.
What do you mean trying to get out? They won't let her out?
Yeah, well, she's paid 50% of the as a
Oh, I see.
down payment.
Oh,
We're still getting inquiries
Yeah.
on properties that we rent out.
And what are you telling people, Sharon?
Well, David manages it, and he's been saying, I won't know anything until June 8th, and maybe nothing then. But stay posted. I'll keep these dates open for you if that's of interest, and check back in. But
Right. We're trying to figure out, I don't know if anybody else has a situation. It's true. We have the grandkids here this summer.
yeah, we're having that too.
And I don't know the answer to the question.
I don't know.
one thing I saw in the Independent today was that realtors are saying that a number of people are switching over to month-long rentals,
Right.
whereas they usually come for a shorter period of time. Now they're coming for longer, so they can self-quarantine, they can be here. It doesn't matter. It's not a short-term rental anymore. And that changes the nature of things. So that's interesting.
Yeah. We'll
Gesundheit.
see what happens.
Thank you.
All right. So it is July 23rd at 4 o'clock, Thursday, if that works for everybody.
Mhm.
Put it in the
Yep.
calendar.
Sounds
All right.
good. to me.
Thanks.
Dan,
Yes.
if I send you some announcement about this grant round, could the forum send that out as well when if they send
I
me
will
up?
make that request to my husband.
Very good. I'll send it along to you.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Yep.
Definitely spread the word, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
Gary.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you.
sorry. I
And
was late.
take care, everybody. Stay healthy.
Bye, Gary.
Bye.
Thanks. You
Healthy.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.